2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Magus Brothers podcast. I am Tyler, and with me always is the wonderful...
Yo, what up, everybody? I'm Feyerbrand, and thank you for joining us another episode. This is episode 21. Our podcast can legally drink here in the United States. So
I wish we had planned better. I would have had like a drink right here for us to, sip on.
Yeah, if you're one of those few people who watch us on YouTube, you actually get to see our pretty faces. Pretty faces. Oh, do a pose. What? You guys listen to podcast land, you don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, sorry. That visual media is lost on you.
Get wrecked.
All right, so we're taking a little break from covering mainline titles to cover another mainline title, but the MMO kind.
Yeah, I mean, with the changes and the roadmap that Yoshi P and the devs have shown us, this is basically going to become another solo playable mainline title. Like,
yeah, people
won't
are
even
running out of
matter.
excuses. We're gonna talk about the logic there too, and more. What I meant to say was that in the last episode we had talked about we're gonna dive into Final Fantasy X here soon, but to kind of give us a little palate cleanser, we may even fire up 10 briefly just to kind of like immerse our brain into it. We're gonna be talking about Final Fantasy XIV, specifically Live Letter 68 and 69.
Nice.
And have a little surprise that we'll throw in at the end if you stick around for a nice little bonus surprise coming down the pipes.
Make our watch duration metric look pretty, please.
Oh yeah, please do that. That's why we're going to save the surprise for the end. But we are still going to be covering Final Fantasy X here soon. But for now, let's dive into Final Fantasy XIV and start with the Live Letter 68.
Yeah, these live letters since the launch of Endwalker have been meaty. Like, I feel most live letters are kind of like expected changes and things are like, yeah, okay, this is kind of what I thought was going to happen. This is cool. And yeah, I never really read very many live letters. And
yeah, because if you play the game long enough, you get the idea, like, okay, the 0.1 patches or the like odd number patches are going to be, they release 24-man stuff. And we know with it being a primary and not like a 0.15 or a 0.25, if it's a 0.1 or a 0.3, you're going to get a new 4-man, new main story content. There's so much you can just automatically assume is going to happen, because the great thing about Final Fantasy XIV is it works like clockwork, that you really don't have to listen to everything to know. You just like, oh yeah, I already know they're going to do these things. But they really, like, this with this Live Letter 68, it was already kind of special because they said this was going to be like the roadmap for the future.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And
this is a big one.
Live Letter 68 ties into Live Letter 69, but the things they're introducing are way more than they would for like a normal patch. I was just like, damn.
No, yeah, there's a lot to digest here. It's a pretty big patch, or a pretty big live letter. And
it will be a pretty big patch, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. 6.1 is going to be pretty massive. And I'm kind of sad that we're not going to be seeing it for like another month-ish to a month and a half. So like they're saying like late March to mid-April time frame.
Well, no, they said 6.1 specifically that it will release mid-April. So going off of the dates, because we know the patch is going to release on a Tuesday, it will be April 12th or April 19th, which means it will be a month or a month and a week from now.
Yeah, we are recording this on March 10th. So
when this episode releases on the 17th, it'll be pretty much a month from
right in the middle.
You listening to this, 6.1 will hit.
And I need 6.1 to come out because some of the changes within it change the foundation and like the fundaments of, I think that's the wrong word. That's not the word I'm thinking of. It changes the experience of your first 50 levels. And potentially it depends on the person. Like, it's cool because it gives you the option. And I'm creating a new character to replay the main story quest on stream and a whole bunch of other reasons that I'm not going to get into right here. But Like,
So what you said right there is actually is perfect, because it really is going to change the fundamental game, not just for the initially, yes, just the first 50 levels, but each patch they're going to be updating more and more and more. And before we dive into what exactly is changing, I want to talk about the why, because Yoshi P on this live letter really kind of opened up with the why. And through their marketing polling, the research they do about the people playing the game, or the people, more importantly in this instance, not playing the game, they look into reasons why they're not getting new players, which honestly their player base was blowing up. So it's interesting why they're looking into why are we not getting more players.
Thanks, World of Warcraft.
Right. Thanks for screwing up. And they really looked into why they weren't getting more players. And they really discovered that they would find a lot of people not playing, or saying, I've played every single Final Fantasy except the MMOs. I've done every Final Fantasy except 11, except 14. Or the reason they don't want to play 14 being it's an MMO. I don't want to play it. And Yoshi P emphasized how much of a, again, we're kind of using our words to describe this, but how much of a bummer it is. He doesn't want 14 has so much to offer, not just in content, but in just narrative storytelling. There's still a stigma with MMOs not being great for the story. Mm-hmm. And 14, right? We can't emphasize enough how much of an exception 14 is to that idea.
It's an RPG first.
And not even just an RPG first, but an RPG worthy of experiencing the story. Like 14 is one of the best stories Final Fantasy has ever told.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about how expansive it is. It's over 8 years. Like, the story is just massive on top of that. I think if you go onto like howlongtobeat.com or whatever, like if you're just cruising through the main story, it's like 200-300 hours just to beat the story. Like, and now with the changes, they're making it to where you can beat the entire story without ever having to interact with another person.
Yeah, so that was a big thing. Yoshi P and the team wanted to remove that MMO aspect. Not remove, change it. They want to change it to where if the game being an MMO, or you having to be well, you still have to be online, but having to interact with a bunch of other players, worrying about being judged, worrying about the MMO aspect, grouping up with parties and raids to experience the story of the game, that was a big thing that they want to get rid of. They want the game to overcome that aspect and evolve into something more. So what they've done is that everyone who's playing the game right now is fairly familiar with the trust system. And to kind of overview that, the trust system, it started in Shadowbringers, and basically the NPCs, and more specifically the Scions, which are basically like your party members.
They're your BFFs.
Your party members from any other Final Fantasy. You've got the party members. Obviously in 14, you're really only controlling the Warrior of Light, which is the main protagonist, but they would be your extended party. So they let you go into dungeons, which in this case are 4-man dungeons, and bring them along. And they're controlled by the AI. The AI is very smart. And not only is the AI very smart, it knows the mechanics. So like if you're going into the dungeon for the first time and you don't know what the mechanics are, you can literally just follow the movements of the other players and the trusts in the party and follow the AI. And that will basically be your cue to, this is what I need to be doing. This is how I avoid this no-no zone. Like getting out of the no-no zone. And it's pretty good. So if you stick close to your buddies, you're doing the fight right. So that has only existed from Shadowbringers, which is level 80 content, to level 70 to 90. So, there's 90 levels in the game, and you would really only be able to use it from the level 70, well, technically level 71, I guess, on to 90. So many 70 levels of content that you couldn't do the game with. You would have to group up with other players. However, they're implementing the trust system, starting with A Realm Reborn, level 1, or whenever the first dungeon is, I guess 15 or 16.
Sastasha.
You will be able to play it with trusts. Now, it won't be the same Scions, because narrative wise, which is game values, that wouldn't make sense. There's so many scions that you don't meet until later, or they're off doing their own thing, or you haven't even met yet. So basically they'll be doing it to where it's mercenaries, almost like the squadrons that exist right now, but with an actual trust system. So AI, you don't have to like manually control them, and they'll be either mercenaries from the grand companies, or as you get into later story content in Heavensward, where you have actual like scions with you, like Estinian or Alphino or Isael, they'll be able to do dungeons with you. But in 6.1, they're going to be starting this. So now that we've kind of laid that groundwork in a really wordy way, let's dive into these trust system updates.
Well, I guess like the big thing though, like I guess it's not going to be 100% soloable, because 8-mans, there are required 8-mans, and you will hard required as of right now have to do those with people. They have not mentioned it. They said something. They did mention it, but they said if it comes where there's going to be 8-mans with trusts, it will not be until the next expansion, which is 7.0 or later. So it may not even come with that expansion. So that's probably something that's takes a little more time. We did get a taste of what it's like to do an 8-man with trusts, and it was my favorite main story quest, trial dungeon, 8-man, whatever. That 8-man with the trusts, hands down, was probably my favorite experience in all 90 levels of this game as far as combat goes. So
yeah, and while it is a bit of a bummer because they want to get over this hurdle of the 8-mans, or sorry, the hurdle of making this more solo friendly, and 8-mans, there are quite a few of them. We'll go over this, but they are actually reducing the number of 8-mans, especially in A Realm Reborn, that you need to overcome.
Thank you.
But there will still be 8-mans.
Oh my god, thank you. Get rid of those stupid dungeons, dude. I'm so excited.
There will still be 8-person trials. They are reducing the number, however, there's still quite a bit of them, and that is something they hope to get done in 7.0 or later. But they didn't even implement the very first one to see how it goes until Endwalker just now, and they said that to go back and do that, one, they would have to make, it's one thing to have just like 3 Grand Company NPCs travel along with you for a 4-person dungeon, but they would need 7 other players there. So narratively, it would have to make sense, for one. 2, they said that they would likely have to retune some of the fights because they need to. Some of the 8-mans are kind of intense if you're doing them at level. So they would need to potentially retune them for the AI and the NPCs. And that's a lot of 8-person dungeons they would have to go retune, set up the AI for, et cetera, et cetera. Doing it from one fight when you're already designing the fight is one thing, but to go retroactively do it for everything is tricky, on top of them doing the 4-person dungeons and everything else they're developing for all the patches, expansions, et cetera, et cetera. So they're getting there. It's not quite 100% soloable, but the 4-person stuff is already a huge update.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for the 4 stuff. I wish we were getting the 8 stuff, the 8-man stuff. I feel like with how successful this game is, they could just hire more people to help and expand their team. But I don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, we're not game devs.
I'm just Joe Schmo out here on a podcast, so I don't know. I want it all now.
Within the scope of just A Realm Reborn, you don't have any 8-man dungeons until the end, and you've got them pretty rapidly back to back. You've got Cape Westwind, and then you've got Castrum Meridium, and then Praetorium.
Yeah.
And as we know with Castrum and Praetorium, they are lengthy, Praetorium especially, because as it is right now, you have to, if you queue up for them, even if you're a veteran player, you have to watch the cutscenes. Now,
it's painful.
It is painful, but I do prefer it this way because when it was a new player coming into doing for the first time, everyone would skip the cutscene, blitz the dungeon, and the newbie player would essentially be locked into cutscene after cutscene after cutscene, and they would not be able to do any of the bosses, and it would be a bad experience for a new player. However, there was the balance was so skewed to favoring new players that veteran players didn't want to do it. So what they've done is Cape Westwind is no longer going to be a multiplayer duty at all. You still need to fight that NPC, but it's going to be a solo duty during the main story quest, which you'll be very familiar with because you'll have done a lot of solo duties up to that point.
And it just goes to show how much of a pushover that boss is to begin with.
Yes. And then Castrum and Praetorium are being completely redesigned to 4-person dungeons. Yep. I don't know if they're going to completely redo everything, reduce the number of bosses, because 4-man dungeons predominantly follow a formula right now where it's like 2 trash pulls, wall, 2 trash pulls, boss, 2 trash pulls, wall, 2 trash pulls, boss, and there will be 3 bosses. I don't know if Castrum and Praetorium will follow that method because there are quite a few more bosses to those. They may just leave them exactly like they are, but retune them as a 4-man. I don't think they will because the cutscenes are still very lengthy in there. So we don't know what the final product is going to look like ultimately is the point, but they're going to be 4-person dungeons. And then the last fight, which if you're listening to us talk about these live letters, A Realm Reborn is probably spoiled for you, so I'm not going to say these are spoilers. But when you fight La Habrea at the end, that's going to be an instant solo duty as well, without a bunch of people there with you.
Ultima Weapon's also getting made into its own 4-man trial.
Yeah.
So there's 2 8-mans are getting split into 4 different duties. So there's Castrum, Meridium, and Praetorium are going to be 4-man dungeons. Ultima Weapon will be a 4-man trial, similar to when you fight Prime. Yeah, exactly. And then La Habrea is your solo duty. So, and I think this is incredible. I don't do the stupid main story quest roulette crap because it's awful, and I literally would rather stick pencils up my nose than watch those stupid cutscenes. So I'm so happy this is getting changed, just because like the current main story quest roulette, you want to do it when you're leveling because it's so much experience for the time invested. So like as you're leveling, it's just sitting there taunting you, like, you want all this juicy experience, but you're just like dreading your mental health. So now this way, I won't, that temptation won't be there.
Yeah, and see, I'm the opposite. I love doing the main story roulettes because of what they are, and I don't want to sit here and be like, I abuse it, but some of those cutscenes are long, and I've got a needy family, and I don't mean that in a negative way. They call themselves needy, but like when that long cutscene starts, I'm like, this is a great time to get somebody a snack or some water or make some tea, and I'll get up and walk around, and then I'll come back, and I'll be like, great.
No,
so
see,
I love it for that.
See, but, like when I sit down to play a video game, I want to play a video game. I don't want to be watching a TV show.
That's fair. I think a lot of players feel that way, which is why they're updating it.
Exactly. I want that interaction. I like the interact. I like to be doing things.
They're also going to be prior 4-man dungeons. They're going to be adjusting some to such as aesthetics to make them more aesthetically pleasing, and also mechanically, such as 1,000 Maws is going to be updated, including having the floor goo that gives you that leaden heavy status removed.
Yes.
Oh man,
dude, I hate. I wonder how fast you can run that dungeon, because you run a lot of low-level dungeons. For like wondrous trails or tales or whatever the heck they're called, just to do it. I wonder how fast you can run this one now, because you won't get slow. Because I never ran it because of the slowing effect. So
yeah, and it's important to note too. They specifically noted this, is that all of these changes to the 4-person and adding the trust system to these dungeons, it will only be main story dungeons. There are quite a few dungeons throughout every expansion that are side dungeons,
optional,
and they're optional, not required for the main story, etc., that you have to go do with other people.
Yeah.
Now, will it always be that way? No idea. They've seemed to be implementing these pretty quickly, so maybe they will add those optional dungeons with trusts. But for right now, to essentially speedline this whole experiencing the main story, it's only main story dungeons. And so this is their roadmap, is that in 6.1, which again, mid-April, they're going to be doing all of the 2.0 main story for four-person dungeons will be done in 6.1,
which is levels 1 through 50.
Yep. And then in 6.2, they're going to be doing Heaven's Ward. 6.3 is going to be Stormblood. And
no, wait. It's 2.x. So all the post Realm Reborn and some of the Heaven's Ward duties in 6.2.
Yeah,
the
but I think in the
rest of the Heaven's
6.9,
Ward
I think in the 69 live letter, they specify that it is going to be a Realm Reborn. So we'll update that when we're going through that part. But basically, things can change. But by the time 7.0 hits, they will have all of A Realm Reborn through Stormblood done. It is the point we're trying to make. So every major patch from now until the end of Endwalker, before their next expansion, by then, every four-person dungeon will be able to be done with trusts. So it's not like this is going to take years and years and years. They're doing this pretty dang quick.
It's about 2 years.
Yeah. So that's great. So
it should be faster than that. I don't agree with this roadmap. They need to pick up the pace on this. I don't agree. This is too big of a game. This isn't some indie dev company. Oh, we have a freaking 10-man team. This is Square Enix with Final Fantasy XIV. Give me a break.
Yeah, I agree, but I also don't think that the team, I want to emphasize that the team, the Creative Business Unit 3 team, is not to blame in that aspect. I believe that it would be Square Enix at large. They should be funneling more resources into that team so they can accomplish more. I believe firmly that Creative Business Unit 3 and Yoshi P, they are doing so much with the resources they have. I don't think they could be doing more, because it's not just they're doing this. The content that they're also pumping out into the game, in addition to all of these for each major patches, is a lot. And I feel like doing more would, without boosting the team, their budget, et cetera, would be too much.
Oh no, I agree. I completely agree. This goes right back to what I was saying earlier, where if I was king for a day, I would hire more people for them to pump this content out faster, because they have all these grand schemes and plans, but it's like, yeah, we're gonna slowly drip feed it to you over the next 2 years. Like, give me 2 years. Give me a break, dude. I don't agree. I think that they need more people and more resources, especially with how successful of a game this is. This is now the game that has made the company the most money. So
Square Enix, give Creative Business Unit 3 more money and more people.
Yeah.
Please.
Seriously, all they'd have to do is release some Emmett Silk thing on the Mog station, make a couple $1 million, and hire some people right there. You're good.
Yeah, that would be massive. So that's the big thing with the trust system. Another big thing that I am so stoked to see finally getting addressed is, and we are segueing here, continuing on with the roadmap for the next 10 years of the game, graphics updates.
Ooh, yeah, I forgot about this. I forgot.
So I want to emphasize that not that everyone needs to go listen to the entirety of this live letter, because it is long, but do yourself a favor. We are obviously a audio podcast, and even if you're watching this video, our YouTube videos stick pretty closely to the audio format. It's just us hanging out. I believe Feyer was talking about doing a video over these exact things, and he'll be able to show this in one of his videos, so go check it out when he gets to that point.
Yeah.
How's that for lighting a fire under your butt to make a video?
Now I'm required.
Now you have to.
Obligations.
But we will talk about these graphic updates, but without looking at the actual examples that they showed in the video, a lot of the excitement and hype in this is going to be lost. But this game is not, Final Fantasy XIV is not an ugly game. One of the biggest things I disliked about WoW was the aesthetic that WoW had, and then when we got to 14 and it was like, oh, this is an MMO, but like the aesthetic is way different. I love the aesthetic to 14. That being said, while it's not an ugly game, there is a lot of parts to 14 that are ugly. The game is not ugly, but there are a lot of really ugly parts. And when I say ugly, I just mean graphically, like, ugh, like,
yeah.
As someone who has run the main story roulettes a lot, there's a part where Ultima Weapon does the like stretch with its arms and like flexes before you fight them, and it like zooms in on the hand, and instead of it being a circle, it literally looks like a fat cross because there's no rounded edges to the like texture there, and it's not circular. And I'm just like, that doesn't look good. Or when you're out in the like doing a cutscene and it's like the pretty grass, which there's actually a funny joke that Yoshi P talked about, was that there's a part in Endwalker where Hermes is talking with Medion, and it's a really heartfelt thing talking about like, oh, like when Medion gets back, she'll show him the flowers or whatever. And Yoshi P was like watching it, and I just imagined it was just like the guy in Evangelion with his hands down and the glasses there, and them being like all like shink. And Yoshi P was watching it, and the grass popped up in the cutscene because the grass is automatically like AI rendered. It's not like somebody is going in there and doing it. And the grass populated in front of them, and it was just like squares because the grass is so poorly, just pixels, is so like poorly animated that it popped up. And Yoshi P was like, "This is so bad. Like, please, I need you guys to go and turn this off for this cutscene. Like, no." And there are a lot of just really rough aspects to the graphics. And we know it. There was the meme with the grapes hanging from the tree because they put the wrong texture in there or model or whatever.
Oh, that was so good, dude. There was like a diamond.
Yeah, it was just like a diamond hanging from a bush. And we love 14, but the graphics have been lacking. Part of that was because initially the game was designed to run and be able to run on the PS3. And when this game came out on the PS3, I'm pretty sure the PS3 was already on its last legs at that point. Like it was in its last 2 years of life.
2013? Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
And by the time Heavensward came out, I think they were done supporting the PS3. So it was 2 years. The PS3 was already done being supported and like giving people free ability to upgrade to the PS4. But they needed the game to run on game. MMO is pretty much always designed for the lowest common denominator, right? Because they want everyone to be able to experience the game. So they're not, this isn't, they even mentioned that the graphics in this game, even when they do this update, will never be for a Horizon levels or Final Fantasy XVI levels. They want the lowest common denominator, lower level PCs or the PS4s.
Your potato computer is gonna play it.
To be able to play it. That being said, what is considered a potato computer nowadays is not what was considered a potato computer back in 2013 when this game released. So it will, in fact, when the next expansion for this releases, it will probably be speculative at the end of 2023, end of 2023, early 2024. Mm-hmm. And that'll have been 10 years since the game's release. So a potato then is not a potato now, right? Graphic updates are gonna be rolled out with the release of 7.0. Again, Fair will do a video showcasing what the character models they showed off look like, but they looked so much better.
I honestly,
give me more work.
I hadn't even seen it.
Oh man, you need to see it. So, they showed one video.
Host.
They showed one picture at first, and it blew my mind because I initially thought that's what they were going with, and I was like, no way, shut up. But then Yoshi P literally clarified, like, people like this, but if you look at it, like, it changes the aesthetic. It was almost, actually, it wasn't almost. It was far too realistic, and 14, while it's certainly more realistic than like WoW, it is not a realistic in that the character models in this, they're almost, it's very anime, it's very Japan, right? So if you make the like Derplander or the human race, the Hyers or whatever they're called, look too human, you have to make everything else look just as quote unquote human. So you get into like Lalafells or the Hrothgar looking far more real than what they intended. And they want this like more anime aspect to it. So, but the improvements they did show were amazing. Like they got to the what race are they? The Mikotes, there we go. And you see like the eyes, and they are very cat-like. I was just like, oh dang, like it is gorgeous. And it feels like a very natural progression. And it's not just the graphic updates, but one of the big things they're doing is lighting. And they showcased at one point, they showed like this is what Titania in Shadowbringers looks like by itself. And when we get off this podcast, I'm going to send you all these pictures so that you can look at them. But they showed Titania as it is right now. And it's very kind of like dull gray, kind of muted dark aspect to it. And then they showed what they can do with adding more lighting into the game. And just the lighting alone made Titania, and they specifically said that the example they used is not what they would implement, because they added in a lot of red lighting to essentially emphasize certain aspects of the photo. But adding in the additional points of lighting made it to where like you could see on the back wall of the entire stadium all of the filigree and the different ornate designs they had around the window that you couldn't even tell existed. Because one of the things Yoshi P emphasized was like there's so much work that goes into like the level design, like the designs of the world or like a trial or a room that a team does. But because they could own the old system, they could only use so minimal lighting for certain things, that so many things you couldn't even tell were there. And he felt bad for that team who did all this work to make the room or the arena look so gorgeous, but then you just can't see it because of the lighting. And the lighting alone like made Titania, I thought they adjusted Titania's model and made it look different, but it's literally the same model, but the lighting just completely changed and made it look more gorgeous. I was just like, oh my God. So
that's the difference, I guess. Professional lighting, right?
So there'll be a lot of lighting updates. They showed quite a few pictures as far as lighting. They'll be doing higher resolution textures for not just the characters themselves, but they'll be doing them for the hair, skin, clothes, the armor that we wear, better lighting and shadow effects. You know, if a shadow catches you at the right time, you get like the really awful pixelated shadow.
It's so bad, dude. Or like trees, canopies.
Yep, they showcased what that will look like, and it looks insanely gorgeous. They did emphasize that the PS4, I thought that the PS4 would be discontinued support with starting 7.0, but they said the PS4 will continue to be supported. However, they're not sure beyond that, and they specified that they're adding in graphics display options to allow the PS4 to be customizable. So you can turn things on and off, so the PS4 could essentially... They basically were like, we found a way to add all these great things in and still support the PS4, because the PS4 will be able to turn that stuff off.
So I think it's important, like you PS4 owners, I know you guys probably already are on the hunt for a PS5. Good luck. I hope you find yours. But I can tell you this. I played this game on PS3 because I didn't have a computer. At the end of the PS3's life cycle before I got a PS4, and like right before they discontinued PS3 and all of that stuff. And I can tell you, it was pretty painful to play this game on it. Like doing a hunt or a large fate was almost impossible. Like you were down to like 5-10 frames, and you were lucky. Like, I mean, even now, some of the hunts, you're lucky if the hunt model will load in, depending on, you know, how high end your hardware is. But really start thinking about upgrading sooner rather than later. I mean, all of this is going to start taking effect in 7.0. So you got about, a little under 2 years to get there. And then the PS4, I'm hoping the PS4 will stop being supported in 8.0 so that we can just go that much further beyond. So
yeah, I think that I truly believe if the PS5s and the semiconductor shortages we're dealing with because of everything going on in the world were not as bad as it is right now, PS4 would not be supported 7.0. If PS5s were as easy to get as PS4s were when they launched, they would be discontinuing them and being like, PS5 is going to be the standard support starting in 7.0. But I think they realize the place the world is at, and they're not willing to, cut off so many people.
Absolutely.
Because while 2 years is a long time, it's not a long enough time in the world to ensure the semiconductor shortages we're experiencing will be resolved. I mean, they've already said that the semiconductor shortages will be a thing throughout this entire year. PS5s are still hard to get. They are in some ways easier to get than they were when they first launched, but in other ways they're harder. I just got one for Kesa. I didn't get it for her. It was my money I spent, but I was the one who hunted a PlayStation 5 down, and it was easier to get this time. But in order to get them, you have to sign up, for example, for Best Buy. A lot of them are locked behind this new Best Buy Plus thing that they have, which you have to spend like some absurd amount, like I think it's like $200 or something for X amount of time, and you have to buy it all up front to be able to get like their premier access to get like the hard to get consoles. For Walmart, you have to get Walmart Plus, and I had to pay $13, and I only did it for 1 month and then turned it off immediately. But you got to get early access, and then same with GameStop. You have to get like GameStop Plus to get the access to their early drops.
What a scam!
Target, you don't have to. Luckily, Target, you have to just be lucky enough to beat their online queues or get to the store. You've still got PlayStation Direct. Amazon, you have to have Amazon Prime. So it's like if you're on the hunt, you have to pay for all these premium services to try and get to everything, and that sucks. It was easy to get the PlayStation 5. I got it first try, but I did pay that $13. And you have to like not troll, but you have to be watching Twitter like a hawk and vigilant. So they're hard to get. And that's not going to ease up this year. And I haven't even looked into next year because I'm privileged enough to have gotten the people I care about PS5s or have one myself. But there's so many people who can't get it. And while I would love to say screw the PS4 and I want those upgraded graphics immediately and forget about that console, that's not fair. And we're not there yet in the world. Unfortunately.
Hopefully by 7.0 we will be.
Another thing they touched on with this graphics update is that currently existing before we actually get there, one of the other reasons they didn't want the game to get too hyper realistic with their character models is a lot of people have deep connections to their character, their warrior of light. And if they made things look too real or change too much, your avatar would change too much, and a lot of people might resist that. So one of the reasons they're really keeping the fundamentals of what those characters look like, but really adding just like updated textures, lighting, shading, et cetera, to really upgrade what that character looks like. They still want you to have that connection. They do not want to fundamentally change your character. And also starting at 7.0, currently existing NPCs will have their appearances updated through starting in 7.0 and throughout 7.x series. However, not all NPCs will receive that update, especially immediately. They're going to do it in batches. So I assume the most important NPCs and the newest NPCs will have this, but not old ones. However, they did specify that a lot of the old NPCs that are using existing assets. So if it's literally like just some random generated NPC material trader or something like that, where it's using like character face and hair and stuff like that already exists in the game, because those assets are already being upgraded for character creation, that character NPC would be upgraded. It's more like custom NPCs that have a specific models or skins.
So like
they
the
would
Scions.
be updated. Yeah, and I imagine the Scions would get done first, but like, would
Sid,
the leaders of the Grand Company or
Yep.
Sid or the specific NPCs in Shadowbringers or Doma or et cetera, Ishgard. We'll see. So game environments will also be getting huge graphic overhauls, including lighting, texture, shadows, reflective surfaces, and improved auto-generated greenery. When I send you the screenshot of what the grass looks like moving forward as compared to what it does now, will be mind-blowing. And that's going to be everywhere because the grass and greenery is auto-generated. So like they're just updating that engine, and it's going to be amazing.
So if, for all of you listeners out there, if you guys want to see these pictures and you don't want to hunt them down, just join our Discord. He's going to post them all in there to share with me, and these will be in public channels, so you guys can just pop in there, join our Discord, and you can see all these.
And this graphics engine will let them do possible updates to add things like fog and other ambient effects that are being looked into. So great stuff all around.
This game's going to be insane.
So the roadmap, they talked about the roadmap for 6.1 to 6.5, which is the lifespan of Endwalker. So these things we're covering are going to be everything they plan to do right now through the life of Endwalker. So we're going to kind of rapid fire some of these, but there's going to be, previously the game would, major patches came out on like a 3.5 month cycle.
Yep.
They are now moving it to a 4-month cycle. So essentially it will be 2 weeks longer. They emphasize the reason for this is, one, they will have more time to create quality content, and they'll be able to bake in things like giving the team time off or, around holidays and stuff like that, which please, thank you. 2 weeks difference is not going to be a big thing for us. And yes, that team needs time.
We all hear about like the absolutely insane working conditions, like the Japanese culture working conditions are already insane. And then we know that
add on top of that game development, which already get known for their terrible crunch time.
Exactly. Now you're mixing those two things and like, oh my gosh, just hug these people, let them
give them
some
a hug
sleep.
and take give them 2 more weeks.
These people.
So we will now be referring to that cycle as a 4-month cycle. They're going to be doing multi-patch side quests starting in 6.1 for they're bringing back Hildebrand, which we haven't seen him in a while. I think we were talking about that. I don't know if Heaven's Ward is where Hildebrand stuff ended or whether it was Stormblood, but the point is we haven't seen him in a while, but he's coming back in 6.1 throughout Endwalker. And we're getting a new multi-patch side quest involving Tataru called Tataru's Grand Endeavor. We don't really know what that's about, but stay tuned.
I don't care. Pass. I won't do it.
And then updates planned in 6.1, we're going to have the new 24-person Alliance raid. So the raids are coming back. This is going to be Myths of the Realm, which revolve around the 12, which is, you pick the 12, one of the 12 that you like reside under, like your zodiac sign, basically, when you create your character.
You hear people say, by the gods, plural, that's the 12. So
we're gonna get to find out about them.
It does make you like curious, like something to think about. Shadow or Stormblood, the 24-man was Final Fantasy Tactics, and they brought in the director and writer of that game. Shadowbringers was Nier, and they brought in the director and writer of all of those games. And now here in Endwalker, we're actually not having a guest writer, so to speak, for this scenario.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is, they wanted to bring all these cool things in for some of the earlier expansions, but my speculation is that Endwalker is supposed to obviously wrap up this Hydaelyn Zodiark thing, and they really wanted to wrap up all the story elements before they went forward, and the gods and the 12 have already been hanging over us. So instead of like outsourcing it to somebody else to do a story, they were like, no, we gotta finish this up and finalize this, so they decided to do that in a 24 person alliance raid. So that's my guess.
I can agree with that. I think it makes it a little more personal because this team is the one bringing it into the finish line, and it's supposed to help tie in and wrap up I don't want to say loose ends, but other relevant story parts. So I think it would have been kind of weird if all of a sudden they're like, hey, we brought in like the guy who writes Dragon Ball Z to do this next 24 man. Have fun. Dragon Ball Z time. Yeah. And you're like, what? That feels so out of place.
Mm-hmm. Some of the other things they've got coming is they're going to have a new PvP mode called the Crystalline Conflict. We're not going to dive into too much what each one of these things will look like because we've got a lot more content to cover. But new PvP mode coming in 6.1, the Arcasadora tribe quests. They also emphasize that they're going to stop calling them beast tribes. They're going to be calling them tribal quests. I think a lot of that has to do with this idea now of the tribes coming together and uniting, which was a big thing throughout Shadowbringers and Endwalker. So like referring to them as beasts now, they're kind of like, we don't want to do that.
It's almost like derogatory.
Yeah. And then new Ultimate Duty, the Dragon Songs Reprise will be coming in 6.1, which is like your super hyper extreme content that we will never see because we won't be doing that.
It's Pokemon Black and White is what it is.
Right. And then the new Unreal Trial Ultima's Bane will be coming. That trust system we talked about will be being added for 2.0 main story quest dungeons. The Ishgard housing is coming in a lottery system, which fingers crossed we'll be trying to go for our Ishgard house.
For our mansion.
Which we'll see how that goes. We're not going to talk about how the housing lottery works, mostly because I don't want to get anxiety. And new custom deliveries will be coming. It will be Emiliance. It'll be Alphamo and Alice's mom. We'll be delivering her custom deliveries.
So hurry up and get her to Max so you can change the clothes she wears and you can put her in like a bathing suit or something and you can go creep on the Scion's mom. And come on, guys.
I mean, their mom was pretty Babe City.
So I know what you guys are thinking. I'm thinking it too. And it's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be disappointed in you guys if you don't. So I'm absolutely going to put her in like the 2B from the Nier raids attire.
The Nier outfit. Put her in the Nier outfit. There you go.
Yeah.
We're going to get new UI options. We're going to be getting these calling cards, and we'll kind of highlight that when we move over to talking about 6.1 specifically in the next live letter. But we'll also be getting new hairstyles for the Hrothgar. In 6.2, things they have planned is the Island Sanctuary, which is the very chill, cozy Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley-like play for people who want to do that. They're going to be adding in patches, updating that through multiple patches throughout this expansion and probably every other expansion they have. They're going to be doing new Criterion Dungeons, which I'm excited to do with you, Fayer, which is 1 to 4 players. So you can literally do it the dungeon by yourself, or you can do it with 2 or 3 or 4, and the dungeon scales to the number of people in there. And it's almost like Palace of the Dead, but it's like a typical 4-person dungeon that scales to the number of people difficulty-wise, and you can just run it for cool stuff.
That's awesome.
So it'll be like, oh, let's see how good we can 2-person this. They're going to be doing new weapon enhancements, which is the relic weapon that'll probably start in 6.2. It sounds. Trust system being added for the remaining 2.x series dungeons, Heaven's Ward, et cetera, et cetera. 6.3, they're going to have the new deep dungeon, another new ultimate duty, trust system added for more dungeons, Island Sanctuary. And I think that would be great. And let's see what else they've got going on. New deep dungeon. And then 6.4, 6.5. So we're getting further to obviously away from where we're at right now towards the end of this expansion. So like the things they're saying they're going to add are getting less and less because they probably don't know everything they're wanting to do. But we're going to have more Criterion Dungeons. So number 2, number 3, more trusts. But that's all they've got for that. That's not to say they're not going to add great stuff, but they just probably don't know what will actually get released by then. Updates to the Glamour system. They're going to have additional Glamour plates. Dresser space will be added starting in 6.1. I know you had comments about the Glamour system, Fair.
Yeah, I think their Glamour system's absolute trash, and they need to get into the year of 2022. Like, okay, we all know World of Warcraft, nobody likes that video game anymore, but take a page out of the book of the things they're doing right, which is their transmog system, and it is a billion times better than the Glamour system, and nobody can change my mind. And that's literally what they need. I'm just tired of the Glamours. I literally don't do Glamour because I hate the Glamour system so much.
The one thing I don't like, so we talked about this kind of sidebar earlier, and I feel like down the road they will 100% update this because Glamour is too important in this game, and I love 14 and I love everything they've been able to do up until this point, but it's getting very, the bigger the game gets and the longer it goes on, the more it is becoming apparent that they are working with very limited server space because they have housing. A lot of people are like, why isn't there more housing? Well, one, it's not as simple as adding in more housing. You need the server space for all the wards and the plots, or the wards, the plots, the houses themselves on every world, every server, and data center. And then on top of that, they need the server space for all the individual pieces of furniture that can go into the house and the server space, et cetera, et cetera. And all that data takes up chunks on servers, and there's a semiconductor shortage. They couldn't even let new players enjoy the game for a certain period until things calm down. Like, they need more servers, but servers are not easy to get. And they went over the roadmap about all the updates they're doing and new servers they've got coming in this year, which is fantastic. But Glamour plates, Glamours, housing, there's so many mechanics to this. The inventory space that suffers because they don't have, their servers are taxed. So it is my deepest hope that as they get more servers, that things like the Glamour system will be able to be refined in a more meaningful, easier way.
Well, I hope so. Like, I feel we have a massive amount of inventory space for an MMO. Like, even if you don't pay for
especially
any
after
extra,
they remove belts.
Yeah, like, we have an inventory, a bag, and an armory chest, and chocobos, and banks. Like, this MMO gives you a crap load of inventory, and then you have your Glamour dressers and your armors, and you have all that stuff. Like, this game gives you a lot of inventory space, but you find yourself like constantly like, where do I put this stuff? Like, you're always so full. Like, this game just throws items at you constantly, and Just go copy transmog. No one is gonna judge you. No one's gonna be like, "Oh, you took it from World of Warcraft." Oh, nobody cares. Just do it. Like, it's what we want.
Well, we'll see what they end up doing. But point is, updates are coming to that to give even more space to their current systems, whether you like them or not. And some of the last things they talked about is there were mentions of upcoming job changes. They honed in specifically on one. There's always going to be, throughout every expansion, they fine-tune jobs, right? They buff, adjust potencies, et cetera, as the jobs come out, and they try to balance things. That's forever going to be a thing. Every main patch, there is a job adjustment. So what they're highlighting here are bigger, more prominent changes. They honed in specifically on Dark Knight,
Yes.
White Mage, and Machinist. They highlighted Dark Knight changes to include reworks of Living Dead and Blood Weapon,
Yes.
which people have been clamoring for.
Yes.
They didn't touch on White Mage specifically, but a lot of White Mage complaints I've been hearing is mana inefficiency, really bad.
Yep.
And a lot of people just don't like the job design of White Mage. It was like they got designed into a corner and they're really bland in comparison to what a lot of the other healers do.
I actually prefer it.
Which, I think my partner is right there with you. I think she loves White Mage. So we'll see what they do there. But another thing is Machinist. A lot of people don't like Machinist's personal damage being as low as it is. On top of that, I'm pretty sure like a Machinist had like a fair amount of party utility once upon a time, like up there with Bard. And then we're not
really.
Not as much as Bard, but they had like the turrets that like hypercharge and it would buff certain like melee physical DPSs or whatever. So they had some utility, but from my understanding, a lot of that party utility got pulled away and their damage is still really low.
Yeah, like they're sort of the samurai black mage of the physical ranged, where they have, I believe, one utility skill and the other two physical ranged have it as well. It's like 10% damage reduction or some junk like that. But that's it. That's all they have. They're basically samurai and black mage, and then their damage is just like garbage.
They're basically like samurai and black mage, but they don't have the damage of samurai or black mage.
No, exactly. And that's why everyone's complaining, because it's like, well, I have no utility, but then I have poop damage. So why am I playing Machinist? Like, well, give me a reason. And they can't. So they're addressing it. And hopefully they're going to look a little better. Maybe either be stronger or have more utility.
So that will be coming. They have resumed the free trial registrations in the game. They've already started reshuffling Japanese data centers. They essentially, Japan, the way their worlds worked, they had it spread over 3 servers or 3 data centers, as opposed to 4, which is where everywhere else is. And so they've essentially like separated it to where now Japan is on 4 data centers and will ease up their congestion and all of that, which will be great. We'll have data center traveling. It'll be region locked at first, starting in 6.18. So that'll be cool. We'll be able to visit more people. And they reassured people that female Rothgar is still in development. But we likely won't see it until 7.0. That's, pretty normal. They never throw in a new race in a middle patch or anything like that.
We've only ever gotten something close to that once in patch like 2.4
or 2.2 when it was with Rogue and Ninja, and that wasn't a race, that was just a job.
Yeah, so I was like, it's similar like that, but that's the closest we've ever gotten. Other than that, every race and job has been at an expansion launch. Wait, what? I can't Blue Mage. I don't remember.
I thought Blue Mage came out with a expansion as well.
It might. I have no idea. I don't remember. So.
But they have like, I think during a patch or something like that, they have like maybe updated like the level cap for it. But like,
they do that. I wouldn't count that. Yeah, we're talking just like an actual
there's
release.
Way too much work. Like you're implementing with a female Rothgar an entirely new model, and then you have to go back and make sure the gear attaches to all that model. Like no
it's
way.
Massive, dude. It's massive.
So that's definitely a 7.0 thing. But anyway, so we originally had aims to cover Live Letter 68 and 69.
Nice.
But this episode's already run real long.
We're over an hour.
We'll do Live Letter 69 a little bit later. We may even wait because Live Letter 69 is split up into 2 parts. It already had part 1, but part 2 is going to happen this month in March. So we may even wait to cover the 6.1 Live Letter until we have both parts to go over. So look forward to that. But before we sign off completely, we've got a little bonus thing coming that we wanted to share.
I forgot about this. So
our good friends Chris and Haney over with the First Encounter podcast, who joined us on a previous episode. We love you guys. Hi. They are finally starting Final Fantasy XIV. and they will be creating characters on the Aether data center. I don't know if they'll be joining Sirens specifically, but the other server they've got listed because they have other friends that play the game is also on Aether. So we'll be able to hang out with them no matter what. They're creating their characters, and having never played 14 and only heard glances about it, but really interested in it, they have that age-old question that any new player coming into the game
or
has. Or if you're just fair and it's any day that ends with Y.
Yeah.
And that's, what job do I want to play? So we will have a bonus episode coming without, the typical 2-week our 2-week release will still be intact. We'll still be doing another episode, but this will just be a special bonus that's going to drop mysteriously, and it's going to be them joining us and Fayer and I with our quote unquote sarcastic quotes infinite knowledge of this game, and telling them all about the jobs they can play. And by the end of the episode, you as the listener will have a abbreviated version of every job that you should hopefully be able to go, yes, this is what I'm going to play if I play the game. But Chris and Haney will also have picked their jobs to start their journey through Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, it's if you guys listen to our previous episode with them, you guys know this one's going to be a real good time. They are fantastic dudes, hilarious, and pretty much I'm going to exert my superior 5-headed Final Fantasy XIV knowledge on them.
And they will just be, because it's not just us going, here's the encyclopedia of 14 that is our brains. It's their humor and shenanigans mixed with our humor and shenanigans that's just probably going to derail what should be a relatively boring and dry encyclopedic, transfer of knowledge into just bonkers shenanigans and jokes.
Yeah, this episode is going to be this is going to be pretty wild.
In fact, actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, next episode may not help you pick the job that you want to play at all.
I think I'm specifically gonna go research like bad stereotypes about each job.
So, and you'll get to hear our stereotypes, like our stereotypes about every job, not just like our funny one-liners for the new expansion, but the stereotypes that persist in all the jobs.
If you're a samurai, that means you legitimately want to date a cartoon woman.
Yeah, you want to be a samurai. Oh, so you understand Japanese. And want to date an anime, you have an anime body pillow of your character.
Oh no, it's oh gosh, this is gonna be hilarious.
It's gonna be a good time. So look forward to that. I'm excited to say that's coming down the pipe, and it's going to be coming down the pipe pretty soon because they want to get those characters made before server status closes again. So look forward to that. And until then, Fayer, tell us where can people find you outside of this podcast?
You guys can find me at Feyerbrand on pretty much most social media sites. You can come check out my Twitch. I live stream every Friday and Saturday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm playing a lot of Triangle Strategy, Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy VIII, Elden Ring, lots of good games. And then, all the other social media things are pretty typical. Come see dumb opinions I have on Twitter, see dumb pictures of me on Instagram, hear dumb video guide words on you. You guys know what I'm saying. Anyways.
And if you're enjoying our podcast, please follow us on Twitter at Magus Brothers. Go to our site for all of our information and where to find us as far as streaming platforms go at magusbrothers.com. Please leave us reviews. They are very important to the hidden Eldritch depths of the algorithms gods. And
pray to Cthulhu.
Yes, pray to Cthulhu. Play the Apple review and review us. Share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your dog, your cats, your reptiles, your birds, ferrets. I don't know what you have, but share it with them. Tell them about the podcast.
Please.
And join our Discord.
Yep, link below in the description.
And until episode 22, now that our podcast is legal,
Yay.
bye.
Bye.